What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Fitness for Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Lohr, and today I want to be walking you through essentially what is something that I talk about with clients, but I don't think I've ever really shared it with a larger audience. And that's establishing a new habit, but it's two very different ways of going about it. And I really don't think this is talked about enough, because I think there's two ways that most people get into fitness and maintain it, and they're very different. So let's dive in. The first way is the way that I think a lot of people talk about things, and that's sort of the slow and steady approach, or that's the way I talk about it, is the slow and steady approach. A great book on kind of this exact approach is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really fantastic book on how to take small action that's going to propel you and build new routines that are going to over time dramatically shape your life, and dramatically improve your life for the positive. And that's how to build strong, healthy habits. Now, technically you could do these with bad habits, but the point of the book is to improve. And that's how I think a lot of people get into fitness. Maybe you go to a group class at some point, or you go with a friend a couple times a week, and then slowly over time it becomes a larger and larger part of your life until it just is a part of who you are. And maybe it just starts with a little bit of cardio, and then you introduce weights, or vice versa, or and then nutrition happens after the fact, or the other way around. Maybe you decide to cut out sugar at some point. Maybe it's for Lent. I know a lot of people will do stuff like that. And or maybe it's alcohol. Maybe you decide to cut out alcohol completely, or really cut back on it. And then just this one smaller action then leads you to want to pursue a larger action. And so that's sort of the slow and steady approach. I use this approach with a number of my clients, because for the right person, and this is what I want to get into, for people who just feel like, okay, I'm ready for a change, I'm ready for the next step, maybe I've taken that first step, that's something that this approach can help with, is that slow, steady approach. You build a habit until it becomes a part of your routine. And then you see, okay, is there something that is worth my time, that I'm ready for, that can move the needle just a little bit further for me? And slowly but surely you build a sustainable, healthy routine. And over time that creates this dramatic transformation of your health, of your fitness, of your body's capability, of your confidence, and a lot of times for your mental health. So all those things. Usually the person who this is going to be best for is someone who is capable of building habits, and they've proven that to themselves, and they're just showing an interest in that next step of fitness. If that's a first step, then great. If that's taking it to the 99th percentile, the top 1% of their fitness, great. Maybe that's what it is. But so that's kind of the slow and steady approach. Is it's one thing after another. It's very targeted. It's very strategic. It's very it's kind of this slow prodding thing that over the course of months and years makes a very big difference. But day to day, it's very difficult to tell if much is different outside looking in. And so maybe that's somebody who, hey, your doctor, you have a conversation with your doctor and says, hey, we want to keep an eye on, maybe it's blood pressure. We want to keep an eye on your blood pressure. You have a family history of high blood pressure. Yours is looking kind of borderline. That might be the wake up call, so to speak, that, okay, I want to do a little bit better on my fitness. And that's how something like that might start. Or maybe I've had a little bit of pain for a little bit and I want to find a way to manage that. And that's how that might start, right? It starts from something like that. The other approach is very different, and I don't think it gets talked about as much. But I think there are people that it applies to that it's important to hear. And it's more of an all or nothing approach. And really what it looks like is people who've had very unhealthy habits of, let's say it's, it might be drinking, it might be eating to the point of almost gluttony. It might be just, maybe you're eating out every day, you're ordering out with, really high consistency or high frequency. You're, in a place where you're gaining a lot of weight very fast. Your health is in a bad place. Probably if that's the case, your mental health is in a bad place. You're very lethargic. Oftentimes this is someone who's very overweight, or substantially overweight. And usually this can come in the terms of, and for the people that I see it with, because I'm usually working with folks who are older, it's somebody who is faced with a potentially life-threatening issue that is the wake-up call. Maybe it's uncontrolled diabetes. Maybe it's cardiovascular disease. Maybe it is a degenerative condition that is not going to improve, but it can only be mitigated through exercise, or reduced. The severity could be reduced, but not necessarily cured or prevented through exercise. And it can be this rock bottom moment of, I need to do something or I'm going to die. I need to do something or I'm going to seriously suffer the consequences of my actions. And that's true. We all will suffer the consequences of our actions one day. It might be, if you've been doing all the right things, the consequences of those actions are that you're probably going to live longer. And if you wanted to, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. But I think that's one of the things that you do in terms of your body. A lot of times you reap what you sow. It's not true for everybody because there's outliers. You see the folks who smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, and that's their secret to living to 100, or drank a Dr. Pepper, whatever it is. Did some clearly unhealthy habit, but outlived their significant other, their friends who pursued health. There's outliers everywhere, right? And so what my encouragement is, don't feel, I think we've kind of swung the pendulum. It used to be I used to see like the P90X and the really, extreme exercise routines out there. The 75 hard is one that's a little bit more popular right now. That is a little bit more extreme. They call it hard for a reason. It's not without its challenges. If you're not, especially if you're not used to being active. And so, my point is, I think we've kind of have this pendulum swing of towards, slow and steady steps, which are more sustainable over time, usually. But I want just to say, like, if you're in the position where you're not pleased with your habits, you're really, not pleased with the results that they've landed you with the consequences that you might be seeing, don't feel like you have to just do things slow and steady. You can, and there is a time and a place for drastic measures when it comes to changing your health and your fitness. You might be someone in that scenario where that's necessary and valid and important. And in certain cases that can save your life. So if you're feeling like you want to make more dramatic changes, but the things that you're hearing are that you should, maybe slow it down, that you should take one thing at a time, it might be worthwhile pushing back on that. And I know if you're a client listening and you've heard me say, slow and steady, and you're in a position where you may think the opposite, I apologize, because there are times where I'm wrong, and there are times where and this is what I always tell people: you know your body best. You're the person who knows yourself and your body best. And so, if you're in that position, you want to make sure that you're advocating for yourself. But what I'm getting at here is there's a time and place to push really hard, and then there's a time and place to make slow and steady progress. So I hope that whatever group you feel you place yourself in, that you will continue to make whatever changes you feel are necessary, and that you'll feel free and feel empowered to take the steps and the actions necessary to get you the results that you're looking for. If you're curious about what that might look like, comment here, message me on Facebook at Jackson Lohr, respond or shoot me a message on Instagram at fitnessforlife_Jackson Lohr. Let's talk. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks.